What's up? Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Our next guest, we are guest crazy tonight. Number 3, right at you. This guy's got about as good a hockey resume as you could have. That's right. He played for the 1980 Olympic team, U.S. Olympic team, won the gold there, of course, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, living the dream. Then he played for the Blackhawks. Must have had a lot of fun. We're happy to have him here. We appreciate it. Jack O'Callahan, welcome to the Artie Lange Show.
How you doing, guys? Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. So, what was it like, man? I mean, one of the most legendary teams ever is just in any sport. College, Olympic, pro, one of the most remembered storied teams is that 1980 U.S. Olympic team. Just how much fun was that as a kid doing that?
So it was a total blast, as you can imagine, I mean, I was in college in the late 70s, graduated in 79, wanted to play on that Olympic team and then go to business school and get on with my life,
Right.
And
didn't work out that way.
Didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah. Well, listen.
It was great. I mean, we were American kids, never thought we could play pro hockey, never thought we'd have a shot at the NHL. I mean, think about it. It was a Canadian league, Canadian players, Canadian GMs, Canadian coaches. They all thought we were a bunch of babies. We were American kids, and we were soft. And,
right.
It wasn't like that at all. I mean, if you recall back, I mean, at the time when I was trying to get into the league back then, you had guys like Chris Nyland, Paul Holmgren, both Americans, right? Kicking everybody's butt in the NHL. So
right.
I guess American kids weren't soft. But anyway, I think with our Olympic team, what we did was showing that we had a lot of skill, a lot of ability, and it forced them to give us a chance. And sort of the rest is history. Obviously, the American kids now are doing great in the NHL, and I think you can look back to what we did in '80 as really breaking that glass ceiling and create a lot of opportunity for American kids, which is probably our greatest legacy.
How many broads did you get back then? Did you put up Wilt Chamberlain type numbers? I mean, it must have been.
There was so much. It was unbelievable.
Really?
No, believe me. You know what? It was a different era, of course. And you got to understand, we were all college kids, and we had had enough fun in college, and we were just trying to be hockey players and figure out what to do with the rest of our lives. And believe me, when you play hockey for Herb Brooks, you don't have a lot of time for any extracurricular activity. Yeah,
he was kind of strict, but it sounds like you spent a lot of time in the penalty box. Very nice.
Well, I don't know about that. You had to definitely play gritty as an American kid. I mean, I know I did. I had to play physically. I remember coming to Chicago. My first coach was Keith Magnuson, and I was a pretty offensive player in college, and I was a pretty offensive player on the Olympic team when I came to the Chicago Blackhawks, my first training camp, and played the next year in the minors up in Moncton, New Brunswick, and coming back on the plane when we get knocked out of the playoffs. I was sitting with Maggie, and Maggie, who was a dear friend of mine before we lost him, said to me, he goes, "You know what, Jack?" He says, "I got to tell you something. You remind me a lot of me." And I was thinking, like, oh, my God, I have to go play like Keith Magnuson? Nobody can do that. So, but I knew what was expected of me. I had to go out there and play with some grit, and I had to develop my game on both sides of the aisle, on the gritty side, on the defensive side. I had to learn how to become more of a complete hockey player to actually be able to play at the NHL level.
Right.
Hey, Jack, the movie Miracle, I know that back then you missed a couple games. You missed 2 games. The movie depicted you missing 5 games with the knee. I just wanted to know how accurate you felt that showed you, your character, you as a person. How accurate was that?
It's funny you say that. I saw the movie and I thought, wow, I could not have been like that, But a lot of guys, like my teammates, said, "Go ahead." They kind of got you pretty good, Jack. But I thought Michael Mantenuto did a great job. Hey, look, guys, it's a movie.
Right.
Gavin O'Connor directed it. He rearranged the script a lot. He's a tremendous director. He's a great guy. And he was a football player at UPenn, so he was an athlete himself. He understood that, a team or an athletic event, it's not really about what happens on the ice. A lot of it's about what happens off the ice, in the locker room, away from the game. And I think he was able to show a lot of the things that we did away from the rink that really told the story. So I think Gavin did a phenomenal job that way. But again, you're trying to condense 7 or 8 months of our training and our togetherness into a 2-hour Disney movie. So, you figure it out, right?
You think Kurt Russell did a good job as Brooks?
Yeah, he was great. He was great. It was funny. Kurt was phenomenal, and he loves hockey. He did a great job as Herbie. And, the only comment a lot of the guys that really knew Herbie for a lot longer than I did had to say was, gosh, I can't believe how much they softened up Herbie.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well,
as bad as you think Kurt was, the guys from Minnesota at least thought Herbie was even worse.
yeah, it's funny. That happens in movies. Sometimes they actually have to doll a guy up. I remember talking to the real Henry Hill at the Howard Stern show about Joe Pesci and how he played that character Tommy in Goodfellas. And Henry Hill said,
Right.
he goes, "Oh my God, he lightened them up a lot."
He lightened up a lot.
I said, "Really?" He goes, "Oh, you had a real Tommy was crazier."
Yeah, you're trying to sell movie tickets, but
Yeah.
I can watch Goodfellas. I think I've seen it 1,000 times. So
Yeah. Well, according to Henry Hill, the real Tommy was crazier. So take solace in that. Hey, let's talk a little bit about modern day Blackhawks here. They just won the second in 4 years. You got these core guys. You got Kane, Sharp, Taze, with the salary caps and everything. I mean, you think they could win a couple more or what?
I think so. I think Stan Bowman has done a great job as far as managing that, as far as the contract situation with these guys.
It's hard to do
a lot
with
of issues this year. I don't know. He's done it because his experience in 2010 when they won the cup and then they had Andrew Ladd and Dustin Byfuglien and they had a few guys that were really up for bigger contracts, and he had to rearrange the team right around there. So it took him a couple of years to get things straightened out. And coming into this year, I think he's got his arms around the salary cap in a solid way. This kid Brian Bickle had such a breakout playoff. He might be a casualty of that. But the bottom line of all this is, you're talking about the greatest city to be a professional athlete in,
Right.
Chicago. And you're talking about, look, okay, am I going to make $6 million or $5 million? Either way, it's pretty good. It's pretty good cash. I'm playing here for the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm going to play with Kane and Taze and Keith and Seabrook. Maybe have a chance to establish something longer term. I mean, this team reminds me a lot of the Edmonton Oilers in the mid '80s. This is a team with Taze and Tane. You could kind of compare them to maybe Gretzky and Messier. You've got a goalie in Corey Crawford that I thought played spectacularly all year. Maybe compare him to Grant Fuhrer. These are Hall of Famers that won 4 or 5 Stanley Cups together. So I think this team is really poised to do something over the long term here. It is very challenging in this environment in the National Hockey League, but if Stan can figure out a way to manage the salary cap, keep these guys around, and I think he's done a good job of it so far, this could be a great story going forward for the next 4 or 5 years. And by the way, in 4 or 5 years, Kane and Taze will be 28.
No, that's fine. They're young guys. And you're saying you're basically comparing them to the Edmonton Oilers in their prime with those 3 guys you just mentioned. That's pretty impressive. Man.
Exactly. Yeah, they're young kids. You think back with Edmonton, the only way they got that great talent was when the WHA merged and Edmonton ended up with all these guys. It was sort of accidental. But the Blackhawks have had to do it the old-fashioned way. They've had to draft. They've had to manage the cap. They've had to build their minor league system. I mean, this organization is solid from top to bottom. And I think they're tight on the cap. They've got these guys locked up longer term. They've got their players in line. They've got a great core. They've got a great minor league system. I'm telling you, I look around here and I pay attention to this team, and I really do think that they've got some staying power going forward.
Cool,
Jack. You go back with Rocky Wirtz, correct?
Yeah, I've known Rocky for a long time.
Yeah, so how much of that success has to do with what he's doing?
So Rocky's a great guy. So Rocky runs a tremendous business, the Wirtz Beverage Corporation, and I don't know what he does there. Clearly, it goes back to his grandfather. So this business has been around for a long time, but to their credit, to the family's credit, they haven't screwed it up. They've done a great job building it and growing it. You know what I mean? Hey, it's easy to be born on third base, but the thing is, if you can actually continue to build that type of franchise,
it's hard. You're right. Yeah,
it's very difficult. Listen, these guys could have been, drug addicts and lunatics, but they're not. They're focused, family-first guys. They treat the Blackhawks the same way. And to Rocky's credit, when his dad passed away, and by the way, I loved his dad, but when his dad passed away, Rocky he put the pieces in place at the management level here, and kind of got out of the way and let them run the business. And it was a great decision. He put great people in place. John McDonough's done a tremendous job, but also sticking with Joel Quenneville and giving him the latitude to build his coaching staff to fit his eye. It's a great management story. It really has been. And Joel Quenneville, I mean, the guy's done a phenomenal job. He's a wonderful man.
Yeah, and he's from the last regime. I mean, he was the guy that people were thinking maybe they'd get rid of him. Well,
not really. I mean, Denny Savard was coaching, I think, when they made the change, and they brought Joel in shortly thereafter, or right around the beginning of it. But, he won the Cup in 2010, and Chicago's a tough place. There's a lot of pressure here. But to Joel's credit, he's managed his way with this team. I think he's got a great relationship with the players, and he's just got a nice way about him. He's just a really solid, good man, and he understands hockey. He's played the game a long time. He's coached a long time. He's a lifer, but he deserves a tremendous amount of credit with the way he handled his team this year and navigated them through that short season, keeping everybody fresh. And then the way they performed in the playoffs was just tremendous.
Now, it's a good analogy you talk about rich kids. When I was 18, my mother, was getting ready to apply for welfare. So I've always hated rich kids. But I'll tell you what, it's a whole separate issue. If I was born on third base, believe me, I would have been picked off on the first play by a mile.
Yeah, I always had an opportunity over the many years I lived in Chicago to really get to know the Wirtz family, and I knew the dad, Bill, as he was obviously the owner when I was here. Bill was he took a lot of heat from the fans around here, but you ask any player that played for the Blackhawks, they would all agree with me that Bill Wirtz was a special guy, would always look after you when you were a person in need. It's the truth. And then I got to know Rocky and his brother Peter as they were growing up with Bill, and Rocky went to Boston University, so
right.
Rocky and I would always talk and laugh about that. But now I've gotten to know the kids, like the next generation, Danny and Artie, the young kids that are working in the business, in the liquor business. And I'm telling you, man, this family is a special American family, and they're a family to be sort of held in high esteem in this country because they've managed their wealth while maintaining their humility and while maintaining their sort of their culture and their community spirit. So. I can't say enough about the family. I really can't. And, again, I'm really proud to be out here in Chicago. I'm proud to be a former Blackhawk and really, really thrilled for this team and how they achieved this year.
Patrick Kane seems like a throwback to the old days, man. He enjoys the offseason. You see him in pictures of college sororities, drunk. Now he's winning the MVP.
Let me ask you a question. If I took you back to when you were 20 years old and I gave you $4 million, where would you be right now?
Let me tell you something right now, Jack. That's a good point. I got arrested with $20 in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly. I got arrested with nothing in my pocket.
No, exactly. Yeah. It's culture shock.
I'll tell you something about Patrick. It's funny. We were at the Olympic. Pre-Olympic deal in 2010, and Arizioni and I came out and talked to the guys. Brian Burke was running the team, and I remember that was right when Patrick had done that little issue with the cab driver. He was really upset about it. The kid was like 19, so I got a son his age, so he was in the newspaper a lot, and Mike and I were talking to the kids, and I remember talking to this and talking to that. I looked over at Patrick in the group with the players there, and I said, "Hey, Patrick," I said, and by the way, I go, "You got to go easy on yourself." I said, "If you think you're the first guy that's ever beaten up a cab driver," I go, "You're sadly mistaken."
You're sadly mistaken.
Don't worry, it'll pass. Don't worry about it.
How's your Rizzioni doing?
Oh, Mike's doing great. He hasn't had a bad day in 33 years. So, yeah, Mike's doing fantastic, and we talk a lot. And he's living in Boston. He just had a grandson. He's got another one on the way. So it's great because now it keeps his wife Donna busy, and now he gets to travel and play golf and do his speeches and continue telling the stories. So he's had a great 33-year run. I hope it continues for another 33 years.
Well, that really was a unique team, man. And look, I'm glad you didn't go to business school or whatever. I'm sure you are too.
Eventually, I kind of went to when you think about it, I bought a membership at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange back when we were standing in the pit with 300 guys, elbowing and fighting, trading commodities, and I was like, business school could not have been more difficult than this.
No, I mean, listen, you had a fun time, and you did it by working hard. It wasn't a free ride. You worked your ass off, and again, you were part of one of the most iconic sports teams ever, and you're on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You're part of an iconic photograph. And
yeah, absolutely. It's been great, and I would say. Again, one of the most, whatever. I would say, pick the one that's more because the one thing about it with us is we were just kids back then. We were playing hockey. We were in the middle of, there was a lot of culture changes going on in the United States.
Right.
We kind of got wrapped into that a little bit. Maybe we were a catalyst of a lot of things changing in this country, but it definitely led to, it was part of the whole culture change in the early 80s that really led to a lot of growth and a lot of excitement, a lot of nationalism in the country over the next 20 years. So I've been talking about it for 30 years, and it's, people write and call and talk and sit me down and start crying, and the other 20 guys or 19 guys on my team have been going through the same thing. It's been a tremendous experience. We love it, and we're just thrilled that fortunately we didn't know what we were going through, because we probably would have freaked out, but it's been a great run.
No, you're right. I mean, you got the 69 Mets, the 61 Yanks. Maybe you go, 27.
Before you go any further, let me just confirm that you guys are in New York, right?
No, yeah, no.
Mets, the Yankees, the Mets. I mean, does anybody really give a rat's?
But I hate the Mets. So. But I hate the Mets.
For crying out loud. How about the 67 Red Sox?
There you go. But they lost.
I know, but it was a great series.
No, I like the 75 better. That World Series.
Torture, yeah. I got to tell you a funny story. I was at a bachelor party. My friend Reggie Kerr, who played for the Hawks, we had a bachelor party for him down at Smith & Wollensky's in Chicago. It had to be 15, maybe 20 years ago now. I don't even know. But we're in there having a big to-do with Chef Hans, a good friend of your guys. He was the chef there at the time, and we had a little bachelor party for Reggie. And the Cubs convention was in town. So a bunch of the Cubs guys that we had played with, Keith Moreland and Jody Davis and Brian Sandberg, are all in the room. And, they were all kind of in the Smith & Wollensky. So they all kind of come down because we knew them when we were playing. Anyway, they wheeled Bill Buckner into the room. Right? So anyway, I'm sitting there. There's probably 15 of us around the table, all hockey players, and we're drinking wine. And, we've had a nice night with Reggie. And I end up sitting next to Bill Buckner. Comes over. He goes, "You mind if I sit there?" I'm like, "Yeah, fine." So Billy Buckner sits next to me, right? And, we're all having a bunch of laughs, and everybody's looking at me, and they're going, "Oh, my God, Jackson Boston." He's sitting next to Buckner. And, 20 minutes, half an hour goes by, and I haven't said a word. And so we're all having a bunch of laughs and a good time. And so Billy Buckner turns to me and says, he goes, "Hey, you know something?" He goes, "You guys are great. You hockey players are awesome." He goes, "I'll tell you what. If I come back in another life," he goes, "I want to be a hockey player." I said, "That's great, bro." He says, "You know what? You never make it as a goalie." And he looked at me straight faced. He goes, "What are you, from Boston?" I said, "You bet your ass I am."
And just then, Bucky Dent jumped out of a cake.
Yeah, no kidding. But we laughed about it afterwards, and we laughed about it. We talked, and he's a great guy, and he took a lot of heat for a lot of years.
Oh my God! One of my favorite jokes right after that was Buckner. Right after the game, tried to kill himself by throwing himself in front of a bus, but it went through his legs. It's a lot of good ones. Jack, listen, you were great, man. Please join us another time, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, guys, thanks for the call. You know what? Hey, and just to finish, you know what? I just want to, it had to be tough for those Bruins. I mean, it was a great series.
It was.
I know everybody in Boston's kind of bent out of shape. My friend called me and says, "I feel like my dog got run over by a car." But, that being said, great series. I think the best team won, but two great teams are in that finals. And, here's to Chicago.